Hey there, how you doing? And this is episode 3 of the Always Moving Forward podcast. It is another solo one with me, Mark Williams from MW Fitness. Looking forward to the next week or so and getting the first guest on that is not Hannah, my wife, and been talking to actually a guy who was a student of mine when I first started into education back in around about 2008, and he was a young man then, 15 years old, excluded from school, and he's gone on with having no GCSEs when he finished his regular school age at 16 to now be a very successful young entrepreneur, businessman based in Manchester. So looking forward to getting Danny on next week or so to talk about his journey in life, which initially started off with our mutual connection through fitness and using the gym at the education centre that I came across him as a teacher, as a fitness instructor, someone who was facilitating sport, and he was a young man that was on various different programmes over a couple of years there at the charity I worked at, TLG. Back in 2008, 9 and 10 I was there. So we're very excited to be connecting with him and talking to him again for the podcast. So on to today, episode 3. Now, I've been working back in education, back in teaching, and that often leads to conversations with young people and some of the adults that are usually in the room, the teaching assistants, other teachers in the staff room, that sort of thing, to fitness, health and fitness, nutrition, and different things. Now, maybe it's because, and well, it really is because I follow a lot of other people on social media that basically do the same thing to kind of the same sort of level as me, in terms of they have a bunch of PT clients and they put out great content to help them and to get more clients. Or he gives the other end of the scale, kind of guys with a massive following, someone like James Smith, really kind of prominent online presence in terms of health and fitness, being on Good Morning Britain, those sorts of things, high profile in Australia because he's been based out there some of the time, and the message from most fitness professionals is fairly consistent around certain things, and it kind of, I guess for me, it makes me think that the message is getting out there in certain areas, and we're not still in the kind of 1970s, 1980s initial stages of Jane Fonda type exercise, or the initial stages of kind of Weight Watchers or Atkins and strategies like this, and some of the kind of fitness ideas, jargon around training and nutrition that kind of came out of that period, actually that seems to still be very commonly held beliefs by a lot of people. And that's, I guess, a misconception on my side, is that there's a lot of people talking about the kind of simplifying fitness and the actual scientific basis of some of the things, and trying to break it down and make it accessible for people, but necessarily the message isn't necessarily getting through to the majority of people with kind of a passing interest in health and fitness, as in they'd like to be healthier, they'd like to be fitter, they are probably fairly active. Where I'm working, and the school I'm working at the moment, we're doing Active June. People are aiming to do anywhere from 25, 50, 100, even up to 1,000 kilometres of an activity, walking, running, cycling, raising money for the school to actually have its own therapy dog. It's a special needs school, and the therapy dog comes in from a local agency at the moment, kind of half a day, 1 day a week, and the difference it makes in the young people's lives who have different needs, from autism, Asperger's, to more behavioural based needs, to more learning difficulties, things like that. In terms of when they are struggling, the dog kind of comes in. It's a lovely yellow Labrador golden retriever type dog, and it can completely change how they are feeling just with the dog being there. So the school is trying to get its own dog, so we'd literally have a dog in the school full time to do this amazing work. But so the real focus for me at the moment, inside and outside of work, is active stuff. The kids are getting involved at the school. A lot of the staff are getting involved in the school. We're all linked up on Strava. Kind of accountability, spurring each other on to make sure we hit those targets. And I'm aiming to do 4K running or walking, mainly running at least 5 or 6 days a week, a day to hit 100 kilometres by the 25th of June, which is the last day of term here in Northern Ireland, the last day of term in the school I'm working in. So that is what's causing a little bit of these conversations. And also, I put a shirt and tie on for school, and you can still see a bit of my physique through that. So that often leads to the young people, particularly the slightly older ones in the high school classes, saying, "Sir, do you train? Do you go to the gym? Do you know about this? Have you heard about this?" And that, because it's small classes and the teaching assistants are really involved, they'll be involved in the conversation as well. And so some of the things that have come up recently, where I think surely people know different to this now, is what I want to talk about today. It's those misconceptions where either it's a long-standing belief because of how things have been portrayed in the media or magazines, or just kind of these things that just get they just seem to be out there and taken as a common belief. I'm going to kick off with nutrition, and this could, be a really, really long, in-depth video about the science of nutrition and things like that. And I've got those, and I'm going to when this podcast comes out and it's on social media when I'm promoting it, I'm going to drop in a link for what I've got. It's called Loom. It's a great facility where you can do a presentation with kind of slides and graphics, and also my face pops up in the corner of a little camera. Quite a few people that present or coach in different ways use this as a kind of online tool, because it's shareable to people. So I'm going to put my Nutrition Loom presentation link available with the podcast when I promote it on social media. So if you're just listening to this or watching this through Spotify or whatever, or watching on YouTube, and the link won't be far away if you go to one of my social media profiles. So the first one around nutrition is pretty much the universal message from most personal trainers and coaches that are trying to break it down, simplify it, and help people be successful, is to lose weight, you need a calorie deficit. And that simply is the energy balance of the energy from food, calories coming in, versus the energy given out during the day. And that might be from just your general activity, you're moving around and your steps just count up, that sort of thing, and adding in extra activity such as being active in terms of a run, a walk, that's more kind of above that kind of steady state, a gym session, a gym class, those sorts of things. So you're aiming to have, if your goal is weight loss, which most people, when you talk to them, they'd like to lose a little bit of weight, especially coming out of other lockdown and things like that. So what you've got coming in is a little bit lower than what you output, and that difference could be somewhere between 300, 500 calories. That's all it needs to be to make a difference, especially if you have that kind of intake set at a nice level and then activities definitely being added on top. There's a number of issues around measuring what goes out, but we can kind of look at what goes in. There's ways of calculating that with online calorie needs calculators. There's ways of doing that. There's ways of tracking with things like MyFitnessPal, or if you're with a personal trainer or a coach, they might have their own version. It's kind of built into the coaching software that they might use with you. There's lots of ways of getting that set up. It is important to get it set up correctly, because MyFitnessPal itself only sets up based on resting metabolic rate, and you're supposed to add your activity in by linking your Fitbit or whatever into it, and then do some funky calculations and end up still in a deficit working towards your goal. Issues come around with that in that it's not an exact science, even if you're tracking with a really good quality watch, because it can't be, because it's just basically tracking off information you've inputted, your height, your weight, your age, your heart rate and things like that. It tends to overestimate, which therefore means it will give you more calories back to eat, and probably might mean you therefore don't end up in a calorie deficit. It's also not exact in the sense of you could put all your details into a calculator online and it'll give you a number, and you'll say to it, I'm aiming to weight loss, and my activity is whatever. It kind of gives you options to break down. You'll probably overestimate that, so it'll give you more calories. And then even if you have exactly the same stats as, say you're a twin and you're exactly the same and your starting point is the same age, same date of birth, clearly the same gender, maybe the same gender, you are genetically identical, just through sheer luck, you weigh exactly the same weight on the time you calculate it. Even then, there will be variations in how you actually output your energy on the output side and how your body reacts with the energy coming in. And that's all due to maybe the kind of things you don't think about so much, how hydrated you are. One of you might prefer a bit more salt on your food, and that does different things with your water and your weight and your retention, how often you go to the toilet, how much fibre you have within the calories and things that you do have each day. So two even completely identical people will react differently to the calories coming in. So that has to then be adjusted along with taking further measurements of what is happening as you're eating the kind of set correct calories. So the calories might on paper or through an algorithm be correct, but they then need to be adjusted as you go along. So if someone genuinely is or tracking really well, kind of weighing, not just eyeballing, really getting into it, being really kind of spot on, we'll go into the ins and outs of what clean eating is in just a minute, but tracking everything really well, getting an accurate total into their whatever way they're tracking it, and nothing's changing in terms of measurements, the scales, or whatever way of tracking that you do, then that needs adjusting again. So the algorithm has outputted what it thinks is correct to the best of the programmer's ability to make an algorithm that works, and 5-6 times out of 10 it'll probably be the right sort of level, certainly to start someone off the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. But if it's set too high or too low, you're either going to be, nothing's going to change, because essentially you're actually working at a maintenance level of calories and not in a deficit, or it's too low and you're feeling really hungry and you end up overeating every 3rd, 4th day or whatever it is, and you can't really stick to it. So that's where a coach, someone with some experience, comes in and says, actually, how are you feeling about these calories? Yes, it's going well. No, it's not going well, because I'm either really, really hungry or nothing's changing. I've added in training. Okay, so don't worry about the scales changing, because that will be that you're maintaining your muscle mass. Let's have a look at some measurements 2-3 weeks down the line. Okay, has your hip measurements gone down? Has your stomach measurements gone down? Yes, they have. Okay, so you are losing body fat. Great, those calories are probably about right. Let's keep them there until things stop changing, called a plateau. People just don't know about calorie deficit. I think that's exactly what I'm driving at here. They think they need to do some kind of crazy, right, I'm just eating meat and vegetables and salad because I want to lose weight. They kind of knock out all the things that kind of make, one, life enjoyable, and two, make a diet, a nutrition strategy sustainable, because it still includes the things they like to eat. That's why I like people to track for a period of time, to get to know what calories are in things, and get to know what calories are in the things they are realistically going to need to keep on eating to maintain the results that they get. So you might be able to add some more kind of calories back in. You might be able to be a bit more relaxed in terms of how many porridge oats you're scooping in the morning, how much cereal you're putting in, how much rice, potatoes added to your food, how often you have a bit of ice cream in the evening, how many drinks you can have at the weekend. Those sorts of things might become more relaxed, because you've reached your kind of target and you want to be at maintenance, or you kind of go back up to maintenance for 2-3 weeks to give I've got what's called a kind of diet break, and then go back into the calorie deficit again once everything is replenished, your glycogen, your glucose, your stored energy in your muscles, and give you a mental break from focusing on nutrition. People think you've really got to do kind of fairly extreme things. Just on that, and I'm going to go into this in more depth another time, most of the different diet strategies that are around at the moment, in terms of kind of what I call different diet camps, intermittent fasting, keto, vegan, if you're using it as a diet strategy, if you are, that's morally what you do, that's great. I'm talking about people going to vegan for weight loss or health reasons, just for that, not on the kind of moral side of it. Those are the main three I can think of at the moment. I can't think of anything else more extreme. Or when I say keto, I also mean kind of low carbs as well. Then the main reason that people are successful on them is because they are, for intermittent fasting, restricting the time that you eat. And for the other strategies, you're cutting out whole food groups, reducing the choices, and putting in a framework that means you are less likely to eat too many calories each day. That's the baseline factor of why they work. You could look at some of the science that people publish, or when I say science, some of the reasoning people publish for those different diet strategies working for health and weight loss. Actually, if you take all those different strategies, match the total calories to having a more flexible, kind of balanced, broader approach that includes all the food groups, then you will get exactly the same results, if not better results, if you keep carbohydrates in your diet versus keto, if you have a good focus on protein versus just plant-based for vegan, if you have the same amount of calories spread across as many hours as you want versus intermittent fasting. The reason these things work for people is because they are taking away a certain amount of choice and putting things into a time restriction as well. And that can be very useful for some people. And there are health benefits to certain things, like having a day a week where you do fast, say, all morning and start eating at lunchtime. The body needs sometimes a rest from digesting to do other things, and that particularly can help around immunity and recovery. But it doesn't need to be every single day. If it suits you to do every single day, if you are someone that doesn't need or enjoy eating breakfast, just call it that. I don't feel the need to eat in the morning. I start eating at lunchtime. It doesn't have to be labelled as intermittent fasting, because then you don't feel like you are beholden to it. If you do want to eat breakfast, say you go away for the weekend with your other half or whatever, and you want to eat that hotel breakfast, I can't eat that because I'm doing intermittent fasting. Well, no, you're just not having breakfast most of the time, and enjoy the breakfast when you want. It's better to understand the overall principles of nutrition towards your goal, and I'm including muscle building, is actually more driven by carbohydrates intake than protein. Protein can be fairly stable, if not lowered, as a percentage of overall calories if you're going into a surplus for muscle building. Then it's much easier to kind of have a more balanced life. I'm of an age now where I want to have an ice cream with the kids, and I want to enjoy a drink on a Friday night, a glass of wine with Hannah, or a beer while the rugby's on, or watching the football or whatever, but also understanding that can fit into my overall calorie intake and still work towards whatever goal I'm working to at the moment, which at the moment I am aiming to be in a calorie deficit and just tighten up, because like a lot of people, I put on a nice bit of chunk in lockdown, and I'd like not to have that for health, athletic, self-esteem, looking in the mirror reasons, feel better when I feel in a better shape. And I think that's the same for most of us. It's just understanding how to do that. Now, I mentioned clean food, clean food. What is clean food? Seriously, what is it? Is it going, actually, I would like to eat these Haribo, but I'm going to clean them under the tap and now it's become clean food? Obviously, wash your fruit and vegetables if it's from a fairly raw source, or from the market, or from the farm shop. But to say something's clean and something's not clean, it gets you in a headspace of, if I eat clean, I'm on target, and if I don't eat clean, I'm off track and not on target. And understanding that, putting food into, it's kind of like a scale of, these foods are foods that are helpful to work towards my goal. These foods are less helpful foods to work towards my goal. They all have their potential place in what I choose to eat. It's just actually I'm going to be more on this end of the scale towards the foods that are helpful towards meeting my goals. So off the top of my head, sources of protein, fruit and vegetables, some dairy sources, eggs, good carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates for energy, and breaking down that little bit slower in the body as you digest them, so your energy releases longer and better, versus things that are kind of sweet and palatable and quick to eat, and you'll feel hungry later on. Also food that are kind of high calorie volume, pizza, peanut butter, cake, those sorts of things. Don't have to exclude them completely and say, I can't have those anymore, they're not clean. Actually, you have to have them in the right proportion in your overall calorie intake. Certainly that seems to be a healthier way to do it in terms of your mindset towards food. So I'd love to slap everyone that talks about clean eating, and I understand what they're talking about. I've had times where I've eaten most of the time chicken or another meat and some rice or potatoes and some vegetables, working towards a very, very specific goal for a certain time. But overall in life, that's not a very enjoyable way to eat, especially when you've got a whole bunch of other things to focus on, like maybe your job, your relationships, your kids, whatever it is. Having a better knowledge of what calories are in things and how to kind of position that within your overall nutrition day to day, week to week, is a much better way of working out what to eat, how to eat, and how to have a balanced approach to nutrition alongside activity and training, which activity and training is good for health in terms of cardiovascular health, musculoskeletal, strength, mobility, those sorts of things. They definitely have their place. Now, coming on to training, I'm going to talk about two things. One conversation that I had this week about someone wanting to tighten up, and the first thought was nothing to do with kind of food. It was, I need to do more crunches and do more abs exercises, and that'll sort my stomach area out. No. The abs are a very quite small, compact muscle group. You would need to do a heck of a lot of crunches to actually cause energy use that has any sort of dent into the calorie usage to start using your stored body fat as a source of energy in your body. And I'm not talking about using them as a direct source of energy, as a physiological pathway, but to create a calorie deficit from crunches. You're going to be there for a long time. You need to be better off looking at the nutrition, and if training is your thing, a much broader program in terms of compound movements in the gym, squats, hip thrusts, upper body movements, rows, pull downs, presses, that sort of thing. Before you even go to abs, the reason people can't see their abs is because of the body fat that it stores over that area. So we need to work on the calorie deficit, the energy balance, and then the abs will come as a longer term byproduct. And for some people, direct ab training is a benefit in terms of stability for their core, for their other training. But unless you are, really wanting abs, and believe me, most people when they get abs are actually like, oh, I didn't realise they'd be that shape. I thought they'd look like the cover of Men's Health magazine. Well, no, the reason that guy's on the cover of Men's Health magazine is actually because the tendons and things that cause your ab shape are genetically a really nice shape, pleasing to look at. He has, or she has, worked hard to get to that body fat percentage, so these abs are now showing. Good one from guy online, talked about before, James Smith, is that most of the time guys are thinking we're getting abs to impress women, ladies, but actually what they're really doing it for is to impress their mates or the other guys, because the ladies don't really care about that much. They prefer, that you were pleasant and polite and had a good character and, text them in a nice way before giving a monkeys about whether you've got abs or not. And the other side of that is, most of the time when ladies are posting on social media about their booty or about, look at this lovely new gym set I just got, and really feeling good because things are coming in, it's the likes they get from their friends. They're clearly not doing it to impress guys very much. So, overall, and as a general thing, most of the time we are doing things to try and impress people that don't even care. So, that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother podcast. So, crunches for fat loss, no need. There's other things to definitely focus on before even start thinking about abs training. Similarly, in relation to that, toning up, weights for toning, high repetitions for toning with a low weight. It's not going to cause any change or very much change in your body. You're just going to get bored standing there with your 2-3 kilo lateral raises or 2-3 kilo bicep curls. Now the bicep curls one particularly for ladies, you can do hundreds of them probably. Your handbag probably weighs more than 2 kilos and you carry that around for hours at a time. It's not going to make much difference. To tone up, reduce your body fat through your nutrition, through your training, and lift weights that are challenging in a safe rep range. For most people, for most exercises, somewhere between 10 to 12 repetitions where you are just about able to finish that 11th or 12th rep is going to be what's going to cause the adaptation for your muscles to improve or to maintain your muscle mass while you're in a deficit, to ultimately, when your body fat starts to come down, look toned. Nutrition in the right place, keep coming back to it. Lift well and appropriately. You might need a program from someone, a personal trainer or a coach, to select the right exercises for your movement, body type and experience. Do that well for a long enough period of time, you will get toned up. You don't need to do 2 weeks of 1,000 repetitions of each movement before you go on holiday. You need to think about that 3-4 months back down the line before you start trying to do tone up workouts. And that's not to say high repetition exercise doesn't have its place. It's just choosing the right exercises on the right muscle groups. Get your legs, your quad sets up in the 15s to 20s sometimes, because they are muscles that are designed for continuous long state movement, walking and running. So you can stimulate them really well over slightly longer sets at the gym, but still maximum of 15. I like leg press sets up to 20 because it works and burns. But that's just me. I'd rather actually lift a little bit less weight on some exercises and go up into those higher weights, because a higher weight, we started to look at putting a lot of plates on, and that's a lot of additional force through other parts of my body that I don't necessarily want at the age I am and with the training that I've done, some of the injuries that I've had. So yes, high repetition, but aiming for that point of failure within that relatively short set. I'm going to do some more videos and more podcasts around training, and we'll go into that in more depth. One thing I'm aiming to get to facilitate this is, like I have at school, a whiteboard to write on. So I'll be putting information behind me and hopefully kind of annotating and showing some examples as we go along. So that is something that I'm getting in place for the next couple of weeks. So whiteboard talks as well coming soon. So while we're on the exercise one more kind of principle. Just talked about programming and having an appropriate program for your experience and for your body type. Now, as cool as it is to go on Instagram or wherever onto YouTube and see someone doing something that looks great, probably potentially using a machine in a slightly random way. My least favourite was for a while, kind of as something new kind of comes out and becomes prevalent in the gym wherever you train, probably a new kind of pet hate exercise turns up. My one, before, I don't know, you might have, on the video version, you might be able to see this, is you're sure you've seen people getting their up on the, with their foot up on the platform for the assisted pull-up and then pushing that down with their leg. It's the same movement as a step up. The gym probably has a step up box. Go and do step ups and stop putting your feet where people want to put their nice Gymshark leggings to do the assisted pull ups and dips. Seriously, use the body in an extended range of movement in the way it's intended to be moved. I'm not one of these that's kind of like, functional training, let's get you on a Bosu ball because that's more functional, unstable surface. But with a step up, it's going to be a lot safer to put your foot, this is my bed here, put your foot on something stable and lift yourself up. Plus then you can hold some weights on one side or both sides to balance yourself out. Then you can do it sideways on and come off your toe rather than pushing off the flat of your foot. And it is, taking a machine that's designed for upper body work, doing lower body work. And if the worst happened in the gym, in the sense of you had an accident, I don't think the gym would need to pay out any sort of liability. You've probably signed a waiver anyway and park you and all that sort of thing. But if you're not using the machine for what it's intended to be used for, then don't get upset when something goes wrong and your foot slips and you trap it in the stack as they're coming back down together or whatever. I can't, because you're using the machine in the wrong sort of way because you've seen someone on Instagram doing it. On that, kind of bring myself back down a bit. A program that works for you won't be identical necessarily to the program that works for somebody else. We all have different lengths of limbs, upper arms, upper legs, torso length, range of movement in our hips and knees, things like that. So whereas I personally might do a front squat because I'm still kind of making sure my back injury from last November isn't exacerbated by doing heavy back squats or working on front squats. That's not going to suit someone who hasn't been training in the gym for that long. So maybe a goblet squat or one version of a leg press instead for that lower body quad work. Things like the difference in a lying leg curl or a seated leg curl or a ball leg curl. It's getting exercises that are appropriate for your experience and what you want to achieve, and continuing with them whilst you are still progressing those exercises. What I mean by that is workout to workout, depending on your energy level, kind of how busy you are, because I generally work with people with jobs and families, and people get tired and people have busier weeks, and they've had a week where they might, not so often in the last 18 months or so, but have travelled for 2 days that week to London or whatever, and for meetings, and they're not quite as full on raring to go on Thursday, Friday or whatever, and they might have to scale their workout back a bit. Talking like in comparative terms, over time they are progressing what they're doing in terms of the weight or the reps. Things that might mean you need to change your exercises are on a consistent basis in the gym. You cannot do an exercise because that particular machine is always busy. Then you might need an alternative exercise from your coach, from your personal trainer, from a little bit of research yourself. Things like, if the seated row is always busy, can you do a TRX row instead? And can you kind of see where your feet are and then move them down 2 inches next time and still get the same reps? That sort of variation, that might be necessary at times, but the fundamental movements and principles of the workout, keeping it the same until you have got to a point where you're ready to progress to a different variation for that muscle group, or that exercise has stopped working for you because it's not that it stopped working for you, but it stopped being progressive because you've reached a plateau. So say you are doing a back squat and you get it up to a certain amount, but then your form is at a point where that's kind of a maximum weight you can do at the moment, then maybe you need to swap to a different exercise to help with your hip and knee stability, to then go back to the back squats to improve that again. Maybe you have been doing leg curls and it's time to add in Romanian deadlifts, but because that's a new movement and we want you to, as a trainer, coach, you want your client to really nail the form of that, you might take the leg curls out for a bit of the program for 4 weeks while they get the Romanian deadlifts form really nailed on really well, and then put them back in together or at different points in the workout or the week or however you structure the programming. It's not exact for anyone. The principles of a workout or a workout structure can be the same, but then there'll be variations to suit that body type. When I train with Hannah, I'll be front squatting and she will do basically a trap bar deadlift, but with a squat focus. And that might mean for some people you need to lift the heels ever so slightly. Hannah's got really long femurs. So whenever she tucks into a trap bar deadlift, it is very quad dominant. And she needs to use the trap bar with the high handles. The handles will come over the top, so she can get into the right position, the right movement. So that's just one example where we're training together, but because we're two different people in terms of our makeup of our limb length and body structure, we'd use different exercises to target the same muscles. So I do understand that some people like more variation than others. I've kind of fairly settled on a group of exercises that there is some flexibility in what they are, but I will keep the kind of exercises mostly the same most of the time, and add in things like drop sets or isometric holds to make the sets hard or elongate the sets and increase the amount of work my muscles are doing, the amount of stimulation they're getting in any given workout. Also means I can scale it back a little bit sometimes because I'm busy, I have to get up quite early most days to do a video or to get filling out before I go to work. Then I go to work, go to the gym after work. I've not got a maximum amount of energy every time I go to the gym, so I can then scale the workout a little bit, reduce the volume. Potentially it's crazy because sometimes you go in, you scale the volume back, and that's when you actually hit some PBs on some exercises a little bit later in your workout because you haven't done as much before it. So there can be a knock-on benefit of reducing your sets on some of the movements that are kind of fairly fixed in your program. Right, I'm always going to do 3 sets of this at a heavy weight. Actually, I'm just going to do 1 today and then move on, and then something later on you'll be slightly stronger because you've got more left in the tank than you might have felt like when you went into the gym in the first place and you decided to scale it back. The term muscle confusion, and in terms of changing exercises all the time, we've got to keep the muscles guessing what they're doing, actually came from I've lost the name of it now, the original kind of DVD, Insanity. They promoted the term muscle confusion to justify the fact that you needed to buy a 12 DVD pack with workouts for every day of the year. You need to change the workout every day so you have muscle confusion, so your body doesn't know what's coming, and therefore you will get fit, and Sean T will make you into a superhuman. It's not necessarily true, but that wouldn't have sold their DVD. Great marketing strategy, scientifically, physiologically, not true. You can progress and stimulate your body to change by sticking to the same exercises as long as you are progressively improving how you are performing in those workouts over time. Hence, the MW Fitness tagline: perform, transform. Do things better, progress exercise, then you will transform your body over time with consistency. So kind of touched on 5 different common phrases that are out there in terms of really misconceptions that are commonly believed around health, fitness and nutrition and training. So if you've got any questions and if you disagree, perfectly open to that as well. Send me a message, drop a comment on the social media places where the podcast comes out, so my Instagram, Facebook page, my personal page, happy to open up a discussion. And also, if any of these things are new concepts to you and you'd like some more information, also drop me a comment or send me a message or send me an email, mark@mwfitness.net, and I'll provide maybe a link to some videos I've done before that kind of explains this, each one in more detail, or the one particular one. As I said, I will put that link out with this podcast for the Loom presentation that I've got around flexible eating, macros, that sort of thing, basically explaining the calorie deficit and how that works, and with graphics and a visual side of that, not just me talking. There's me talking as well on that, but for visual learners out there, a good way maybe to take it in. And as always, any questions around health and fitness, nutrition, please give me a shout. So it's been great doing this 3rd episode of the Always Moving Forward podcast. As I say, future episodes, looking forward to having Danny on as a guest and all the people coming. And as always as well, any ideas, any topics you'd like me to cover, give me a shout in the ways I've already talked about. See you soon. Thank you for listening to the Always Moving Forward podcast. You can find more information about MW Fitness at www.mwfitness.net, and all our links to social media are there too.